Hey and howdy everyone, it's Jeannie with Paper Pixie Ink, and today I'm going to show you how to make this fairly simple folio style album. It's a great way to use up pattern paper that you have that's just kind of lying around, not enough to really necessarily make an album, but plenty to make, you know, a quick little gift like this. So stay tuned. So to start, I'm going to take a piece of 110-pound black cardstock and I am going to trim it to 6 1/4 by 7 1/4. And then I'm going to take a second piece and trim it to 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. And then I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to trim it down to 6 1/4 as well. And then let's grab our scoreboard. So the piece that is 6 1/4 by 7 1/4, we're going to lay it with the long part across the top. So we're scoring along the short side. And I am going to do it backwards. So from 7 1/4 to 6 3/4, so that should be a 1/2 inch. We're going to create a tab with that. And then I'm going to score 4 more times at 1/8 of an inch each. Oops. So that's to 6 1/4. So we end up with a square on here that is 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. And then we're going to take this piece that we had left over, so it's 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, and I am going to score along the long edge with the short edge across the top. I am going to score at 4 1/4. Leaving approximately a 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to score 4 more times at 1/8 of an inch. So let's fold on our score lines. And now let's glue this all together. So I'm just going to use some liquid adhesive. And on this first tab here that's a 1/2 inch, I'm just going to put some glue. Going right up to that score line, but not over it. And then we're going to take our 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 piece, and we are just going to lay that on there, going right up to, but not over, that score line. Then we want to press it down, burnish. So we have the start of our folio here. And then I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to attach it to this side. So we're going to go ahead and put glue on this tab here, going right up to that score line, just like we did on the first side. And then we're just going to flip this over because you want your seams to be on the inside. I'm just going to place it down right at that score line. Not over it, but right at it. We're going to press it down. Get a good burnish on that. So this here will be our cover. So just like this. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my corner crocodile. I'm going to use the 1/2 inch one, and I'm going to do all 4 corners. So here we have the base. So we're just going to create a few extra flaps to go on the inside to have a little bit of space and a pocket. So we're going to do 2 flaps for here. And this is just some scrap black cardstock that I had. And it is 4 3/4 by 8 1/2. So I'm just going to cut this down to 6 1/4. And I'm going to do the same thing with these 2. So these are also 4 3/4. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut them down to 6 1/4. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my scoreboard again. And I'm going to score each of these. Okay, so we're going to score this at 4 1/4. And this at 4 1/4. And 4 1/4. And 4 1/4. Put that aside for the time being. And we're just going to fold on the score lines and burnish those folds down. You want these to stay nice and flat. So these are going to go in here like this. So what we're going to need to do is we are going to need to trim 2 corners with the crocodile, and again I'm using the 1/2 inch. So this can go just like this and still go with the rest of the flow of the folio. So I'm just going to grab my glue. We're going to get pretty good coverage on here. Again, never putting too much on because you don't want it oozing out and gluing other unintentional things. And I am just going to line this up and then press it down. Just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and round these corners as well, just to kind of keep with the flow. So this one is going to go on this side up against the first score line there. So I'm going to go ahead and trim these corners. And then we're going to go ahead and glue that down. And again, I'm putting it against that first, not over, not on top of, but against that first score line. So these are going to go on here, just like this. But we also want to make a pocket. So obviously we're going to have to glue these down first, but let's go ahead and make our pocket. So I'm just going to grab my paper trimmer. And here is a piece of scrap that I had. So we're going to cut this down. The space between this last score line and this first score line should be 6 1/4 inches. So that is the size that we want our pocket to be. So I don't know if you can see that, but that is 6 1/4 inches between the last score line on this side and the first score line on this side. So we're going to cut this to 7 1/4. And I'm going to cut this down to 3 because I want my pocket to be 2 1/2 inches. So we're going to grab our scoreboard again. And we are going to score this. So we're going to score at 6 1/4. We're going to flip this around and score at 2 1/2. And then we're going to flip it around one more time and we are going to score at 6 3/4 again. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to chop diagonally the two corners where the two score lines meet. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fold and burnish on those score lines. And so here we have our pocket that should fit between those two score lines perfectly. So I'm going to grab my other two page flaps that I made, and I am going to trim the corners. And I'm going to go ahead and glue these down, and then I can glue my pocket over top of this. So we're just going to apply glue, same as we have before. And we're going to just butt this up against that last score line. Not over it, not on it, but against it. We're going to do the same thing with this other side, but we're going to butt it up against the first score line. So we're just going to butt it up against that score line. Not over it, but against it. And then we're going to take our pocket and we're going to glue it down over top here. You can put on your pattern paper first and then put on your pocket, but because the pocket is, it's a very basic pocket, we're just going to take a piece of 6x6 paper and cut it to fit so that we only use one piece. So it'll fit but it's up to you if you find it easier to put your pattern paper on first and then glue your pocket down over top of it. I tend to only do that when I'm doing a fancier pocket that has, you know, a cutout, or it has some kind of fancy border or something like that. And let's just make sure that I didn't glue anything accidentally. Okay, so this is the basis for our little folio. So coming together nicely. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my pattern paper for this. And I'm just going to cut it all and get it all ready. For our closure, I am actually going to use some elastic and one of these eyelets from We Are Memory Keepers, but I don't want to attach this until such time as I have my pattern paper on here. So I actually have this paper from Catherine Pooler. This is from last year, maybe. Actually, it might have been from 2 years ago. Working through my stash, guys. So I am just going to pull out some of these for my covers and my inside pages. So I'm going to use this for the outside of my album. So I have one piece here. I'm going to need a piece for here. And then I have one piece for my back. And this here, I'm going to cut my pattern paper to 3.5. And I'm going to cut it this way. So always make sure before you go to cut your pattern paper that you have it going the right way when you measure. So this can now go on here, and I can glue these down. So I'm going to go ahead and going to corner chomp the appropriate pieces. I'm going to go ahead and glue these pieces down. Now I'm going to do the back, and again, you always want to make sure when you're gluing your pattern paper down that if it has a pattern that has an up or a down or a left or a right, that you are making sure that you glue it down the right way. So let's think about how we want the inside to look. So I'm going to cut these two pieces for the front of my flaps on the left. And again, these are going to be 4 inches because these are 4 1/4 inches wide. So I'm just going to cut 2 of these to 4 inches. So these are just going to go on here like this. And I'm going to trim them on the corners. So this one is going to be trimmed on all 4 corners. Just like that. And this one is going to go like this, and I'm going to trim just these 2 corners because these are squared. So just like that. Don't do like I did and glue it on the wrong side. At least I caught it right away. So these just go like this. So for this side, I think I'm going to use these 2 for the outside. And then I'm going to use this one for the center. And then I'm going to use either one of these on the outside. And then I'm going to use this here. I know I'm kind of all over the place, but I kind of want to see how I like these to fit together. So again, these are 4 1/4, so I'm going to be cutting my pieces to 4 inches. So I'm going to cut 2 of these to 4 inches. And I need to trim my corners. Go ahead and just glue these down. Just like that. And then I'm going to trim this one in the corners. I really like these corner chompers. They have a couple of different like styles, and I use them all the time. They're a great way to add a little bit more, decoration to your pages without a lot of effort. Okay, so these are going to sit like this. Let's go ahead and do this one. So this was 3 1/2 inches we're going to cut this to. And we're going to trim these 2 corners. So this is just going to fit on here like this. So let's go ahead and do these. So again, these are 4 inches. 4 inches. Because these are 4 1/4 wide, so we're going to cut our pattern paper to 4 inches, and we need 2 of those. So I'm just going to grab these and cut those to 4. These are going to go on here like this, so I'm going to go ahead and trim this side for here. And then I'm going to trim this side for the right. So let's glue those down. And for something like this, you could totally use a tape runner or a tape gun or whatever. They would completely work for a project of this size. So the last part that we need to do is cut this piece for here. So the pocket was 2 1/2, so we're going to cut the pattern paper to 2 1/4. And again, you want to make sure that you have it going, you know, the right way, whichever way that happens to be. So I'm just going to make sure I have it running the same way this one is. So I'm going to do this. So I'm going to cut this piece here to 2 1/4. So this is going to go on here just like this, and this is going to tuck just ever so slightly under here like this. So let's glue those down. Tuck that in, maybe just like this. Trying to keep everything nice and even and matched up. So this is the last piece that we had, and I am just going to put I'm just going to put fish on all of them. So I'm going to cut these two down. So these two are going to be cut down to 4 inches because again this is 4 1/4. And this one I'm going to trim all 4 corners. Going to go on there just like this. This one here I'm going to trim on these 2 corners. So just like this. And then I'm going to put this one here and I'm going to trim these 2 corners because these are the ones that we rounded. So let's go ahead and glue those down. Oops. Okay, so now we have our base folio completed. It looks just like this. And you have plenty of space because each one of these could house 2 to 4 photos. It depends on what size you have and what size you want to crop them to. But there is plenty of space. You have these 2 flaps as well, plus the pocket and here. You can put a couple of small cropped photos on here, but again, we're going to use this to make our closure. I'm going to put my paper to the side for the time being, and let's work on our closure. So I'm just going to use some, this is elastic, and it's black, so I'm just going to use some of it, and what I'm going to do is I need it to be slightly smaller than this ×2 because it's going to wrap around. So I'm going to cut it right about here. Put that to the side, and we're going to do this part. So this is my Tim Holtz ruler. I like this ruler because you can find center very easily. So I'm just going to use it to find center, and I'm going to do it about 1 inch up. So I am going to use the ruler because each one of these heavier lines is 1/4 inch. So I can find my center, which is 3 1/8 of an inch because this is 6 1/4, and I can find 1 inch in, and I actually think I'm going to modify that to be about 3/4 of an inch. So again, making sure that you have it centered. I'm just going to go ahead and mark that spot. So I'm going to grab my Crop-A-Dile, and I'm going to use the 3/16 punch portion of it to punch this spot out. So because I marked it, I can just line that up with the hole here and punch that out. So I'm just going to poke this through the hole, and then I am going to use this part of the tool to clamp it kind of closed. So just like this, there we have, and then I'm going to just put these through, and I'm going to tie them in a knot. And I didn't leave myself a whole lot of extra space, so what I want to do is make sure that I get that knot as close to the end of these that I can. And then this will close just like this. Just like that. So this is just a basic idea, but you can get quite a few photos in them. It's pretty easy to make. It's a great way to use up just a few pieces of pattern paper. And you also have the pocket, so you can make additional photo mats or tags or journaling cards or what have you to place in there. So that is it for today's tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know it's pretty basic, but they're kind of fun to do. They're relatively quick and easy. And again, it's a great way to use up some of your pattern paper that you have that's just kind of lying around. That's not enough to make an album, but you could totally make one of these. And you don't have to create a closure like this. You could totally do something like a, you know, a magnet or a belly band maybe, or, you know, something similar. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's tutorial, and as always, if you are interested in seeing more, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks everyone.